So good to see you ladies. That's so fun. Hello, hello. Just cleaning up my little space here. We had a little practice meeting yesterday for groups for the new Bellam at Home. We had some kids, a couple families join us and practice doing some Zoom discussions. So I had little would you rather game cards and stuff out to have conversations with the kids and the groups. It was fun, actually. It turned out really well. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Is that something that's interesting to you, this idea of being able to have a place that you can meet up with other families? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, I'm curious about that because I didn't know. Is that a big deal? Is that something that families are wanting? And I guess as time moves on, it's weird. I don't know how to think about it. I think it could be so good because there are so few warm hearts out there. At the same time, I feel hopeful that as moms are warming their hearts, that they'll be more equipped to influence other moms, to help other people have warm hearts and eventually be able to find people to meet with in person. But I think the virtual option is just so lovely. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that moves forward, how it develops. I don't know.
At least for me, so having this group be virtual, it's just giving me somebody to have. And so I feel better about life. And so I can go out and help other people, like you're saying. I feel that has very much been true for me. So I'm hoping it'll be true for my daughter as well, to have Bellam and the groups thing.
Okay, that makes sense. So you feel supported here and that feeds you, and then you can go out and do your thing. Otherwise, we get to where we feel a little empty if we're out there reaching and not getting a lot of feedback.
Yes, and people not being interested. And then it's like, what am I doing? I don't know.
Yeah.
And then I come here and I'm like, oh yes, everyone knows.
Right. Exactly. Isn't that nice to have a place where you're with people who get it? Yeah, Melanie.
I was just going to add in that I've even found somebody that's interested, and we've been gradually going through the Catch the Vision course, like one thing per month, one section. But we're pausing for the summer because our schedules aren't really lining up to connect and sit down together. And so, I had finished going through the Catch the Vision course, and it's always good to go through it again, but it's not like moving forward with deeper discussions yet, it's just kind of a slow process because it's been like almost a year that we've been doing this. So while it's good and it's lovely to have those in-person conversations, and I'm really glad that something's starting to build. It's also nice to have the larger group with more discussion and people who are farther along the path than I am, that we can, have different kinds of conversations and help and lift each other.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I think it makes a big difference having your people. It's funny, I guess I used to hear people talk about that, all the different ways that has been shared over the years, but just having your people, having your group of friends, of people who understand you, and that makes a big difference. We feel supported because of that. And it's interesting how different we each are. We're in very different places in our lives and very different people, different interests, different talents and things, but we have made such a connection here. So interesting. So I'm very curious to see where today is gonna go. It's just such an interesting thing to start out and have no idea where we're going and then end up on a lovely little journey for an hour. So Where are we going?
I'll share something.
Okay, good. Thanks.
So we went to the library on Wednesday and they had a little display because Flag Day's coming up. So I checked out a book about Betsy Ross and one about the history of the Pledge of Allegiance, and then another one I don't remember. But I read the history of the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. It's like that. I'd never even heard of the book, but it was just on display. I'm like, that looks like a great book. And so I read it, and it was because the Pledge of Allegiance didn't even come about. So the way it came about is in, let's see, 1892 was the 400th anniversary of Columbus coming to America, and they wanted to have this big celebration. Actually, prior to that, this guy who was the editor or publisher of Young People's Companion, it was a magazine that went out, he wanted to get a flag in every school. So he had all these things to get a flag in every school, and he kept saying, if you don't have a flag, come, we'll send you 100 free certificates that like they would get these pledges so they could get money to get a flag for the school. And so he started that in I think it was 1890. And then he realized in 1892 was the 400th anniversary of Columbus coming. And so they, so that's kind of where the pledge came about, then truncating it quite a bit. But there was this guy that he hired, and he went to, because they wanted to have this big celebration. So he sent this guy to, that he recently hired, to Washington, D.C. to talk to the President of the United States, which was Harrison is the last name. I used to know all the names of the President of the United States. And yeah, Benjamin Harrison. And he says, this idea, this date's coming up. We'd like to have a celebration. We want it to become a national holiday because, it's very important to us. And so he did have so long story short, he did sign a thing that said, okay, this is gonna be a national holiday. And then as August 1892, they were wanting, well, we need to have a pledge. We need to come up with a program so all these school kids can, celebrate. And so it's interesting because they say they don't know who the exact author was. It says, as the story goes, when procrastination was no longer an option, Upham, that's the guy who was kind of doing this whole push to get a flag in every school, urged Bellamy, that's the guy he hired to go to Washington, D.C. Well, not just to go to Washington, D.C., but he's the one who talked to President Harrison. They urged Bellamy to lock himself in his office and at the very least draft an outline of the little pledge. And it says, the story continues that hours later, Bellamy emerged with the Pledge of Allegiance scribbled on a scrap of paper. And at that time it said, I pledge allegiance to my flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So you can tell it's a little different than the one that we know now. And they're like, well, that's good enough. It's short, the kids can memorize it. So then they have some pictures of the programs that was sent out. And then but it says the only thing that this lasted from that whole program was the Pledge of Allegiance. And then it goes and talks about how it was added that the United States of America, because all these immigrants started coming in at the late 1890s. And then this one lady, they call us people together, and this lady says, how about we have it be, instead of my flag, to the flag of America, or to the United States, and they added America. Then it wasn't until 1954, is that what it was? Yeah, 1954, with the rise of communism. And they said the difference between communism and the United States government was, it says communism denies the existence of God and therefore denies its citizens the right to express their belief in God. So that's when and it gives some quotes from the Declaration of Independence saying, we have these rights from God. And so then this committee came together and they decided to insert the phrase under God to the pledge. And then it says President Dwight D. Eisenhower attended a church and heard a sermon preached by a reverend. And his sermon, he proposed there was something missing from the Pledge of Allegiance. And then it was just like the next day that they submitted, we need to add under God to it. And he says, President Dwight D. Eisenhower says, the world Well, little note, nor long remember what we say. Oh, sorry, I'm skipping around. Then they talked about how
No, that's
in the
okay. That's
Gettysburg,
from the Gettysburg Address, and
yeah,
I
and the
love
Gettysburg
that.
Address. Yeah,
Yeah.
The Gettysburg Address was when they first said, President Abraham Lincoln, when he first mentioned the nation under God. And they're like, okay, we got to put it in there. So I was just fascinated with the history of that. And at the very end, it says, join the resolution. It says 2014 is the 60th anniversary of the addition of Under God to the Pledge of Allegiance. And she says, go to this website to join the resolution. Of course, I didn't find it till now. I haven't gone there, but just, how that seems to kind of be under attack right now in our country of the, so she's like, let's save it. So anyway, I just thought I just enjoyed learning about that.
That is really interesting. And so I love how excited we get when we run across things like that. I love to hear about that. So thanks for sharing, Mary. Those were a lot of good things and super interesting. The under
And
God
someone
part.
asked, Melissa asked, was his last name Bellamy? And she's like, she spelled it Bell. And so I didn't even make the connection. It's spelled Bellamy. So maybe it's Bellamy, but
right, but very much,
Bellam,
very much like
funny.
Bellam. Yeah, that was funny. I saw that too. Wow, I love that. So thanks for sharing. It's so important for us to know those stories, to find out about those things, to learn that and then share it with our kids. But it's important for us to know it too and to share it with people. Remember, wait, which one of you, I'm not going to remember who it was, that shared the connections you were finding with your hairdresser? I don't remember who it was, but here it was just this little thing about sharing about Helen Keller, and that those that were her contemporaries with her and that were helpful to her, being Mark Twain and Thomas Edison, I think. And it was just fascinating to me, those connections. And she was saying that her hairdresser just said, oh, I never knew that. That's so interesting. People want to know things. It's might be a little bit out of our comfort zone to share, hey, guess what I learned today? But I think that's a really good thing. I think the world needs to just hear some goodness. And yeah, Cadence.
So last night I read a story from the Symphony Stories about Robert Schumann. I don't know how you say it. Anyway. And so when he was a boy, he was playing piano, and he thought, oh, I'm going to strengthen my fingers by like lifting up one of them and in the little sling or something. He was trying to strengthen his fingers. He ended up damaging his hands so bad that he could not play piano anymore. But it ended up being a blessing because he then became a composer. And so then we have all of his beautiful symphonies and music that he has made. But I had no idea. I mean, how many times are we doing something dumb and it ends up being a huge blessing? Isn't that fascinating? Like, our stupid mistakes that we do can actually have a good influence on the world. And that just gives me so much hope. He couldn't even play. No, he couldn't, but his wife was a really good pianist, Clara Schumann, and she would play all over Europe, and she would play his pieces. And actually what I was reading was saying was that he really encouraged her. And so she just went for it and tried to, and played all this stuff, played all his pieces, and just as a kind, I guess not as a career, but I haven't researched that much about it, but he encouraged her in her music and to play. And so she would play his pieces. But I just thought it was so fascinating. And so I'm making a notebooking page. I don't have a picture printed yet, but I'm just excited because I'm like, yay, that's my one notebooking page. I mean, I just don't make that many. So I'm trying to celebrate the few that I make.
Yes, and you should. That's so good. Yeah, I don't either. And I need to do that probably, because I remember more if I write it down or if I share with somebody. So that's good. And then hold on, what'd Melanie say? Hang on, Melanie. Yeah. So Cadence was answering Melanie's question because Melanie had just said, wow, he couldn't play his own compositions then. So that's what Cadence was answering. And then Melanie added that takes some humility to step back and help someone else thrive in what you once enjoyed. Yeah, that is such a good point. That's very sweet. It's a tender story. Thank you, Cadence, for sharing that. And congratulations on your notebooking page. Good job. I love that we can also be here to encourage and champion each other, because it doesn't hurt to have somebody doing that for you. Okay, what else? What are some good things you're doing? I just had my Mothers of Influence, my in-person meeting again yesterday, my third one. We did section 3 of Catch the Vision. And these are, Lindsay came to this one, so that was good. And then 2 other women who, 2 of the others couldn't make it. Usually there are 4 of them that come. But the 2 that came had listened to one of them had listened to everything, all the things in section 3. The one of them had listened to just a few of the things, but she said, I have to tell you that I had not warmed up to this yet. You know, I love coming and chatting with you ladies, and that is helping me. But I just had no feeling for any of this stuff. She said, I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but just I wasn't getting the well-educated heart stuff. And she said, but this time, I don't know what it was, but something clicked and it touched my heart and I felt something, and I'm really excited. I feel like I'm coming back, like it's waking me up. So I'm excited about that. I'm just excited to see what happens. So yeah, it's a lovely thing. But that the section 3, joy is everywhere, is such a lovely one to pop into now and again when you just need a little bit of an uplift. It's a good, there's so many good positive reminders there about all the different places around us that we can find joy. So it was just nice to be back in there.
The local group that I've joined, I found out about them in the last couple of months. So I went to a meeting in April and in May, and so they were finishing up. They were doing the take 5s, but they were doing it through the book, going through the book that has the take 5s in it. And then we decided for the fall we did a little poll, and we're gonna do the Catch the Vision, like the book that has the Catch the Vision stuff in it. I don't know if I'll have a physical copy yet, but it's been fun because yesterday we went to a little city. Our city's having their little summer thing, and so I went there and I saw 2 of the ladies from the group there, and it was just fun. I was like to actually recognize them outside of, I've only seen them a few times at these meetings, and it was good to recognize them and remember their names so I could say hi to them. So it was just kind of fun having that little connection. So one of them said, yeah, I think I saw you going into the library the other day. I said, yeah, probably was. And we go to the library a lot. And so anyway, it was just a good connection.
Oh, I love it. I love that you ran into them. That's fun. And it is good to make connection in other places too. Just to, especially it kind of emphasizes the fact that you've got multiple ways of being connected. So it's worth getting together. There's a reason why you're running into each other. So that's good. I like that. Okay, other thoughts, other things that you've been thinking about or doing or thinking about adding into your life, things you're thinking about removing? I'm thinking about removing things. I'm trying to simplify my life. Good luck. But I'm trying to find ways to add much more goodness and make room for that by taking out some of the other things. It's just, we accept so much just because it's been there for a long time. And so that's what I'm trying to think about, is just have new eyes to see what maybe could be out that I don't need, but I think I need. For example, I have a chair. There's a chair that was in this house when we moved in. This house was full of junk. In fact, I sent my kids away for a weekend and just had some adult friends come over to help me clear out the house. And because there was so much ugly stuff here. So we cleared out a bunch of ugliness and filth. And then there were a couple weird things that just were part of that. And one was this chair, and I liked the shape of it. And I decided to keep it. I cleaned it. I took off all the old upholstery and everything. And I thought, oh, I'll recover this chair. Not because I have any experience recovering a chair, but just because I thought, well, that'd be fun. And it's not like it's a seat and a back part, and that's it. It's not the whole thing. So it's just a little occasional chair. And I've had it sitting there uncovered with the pieces of foam that I bought to cover with some fabric of my choosing. It's been like this now for however many years we've been here, 14 or something like that. And it's just been sitting there. And my husband asked me just the other day, do you want to recover this chair, or do you just think you should or think you want to? You don't have to do that. Just because you thought about it once, originally or whatever, you don't have to do that. And he invited me to ponder about that and decide if it was something I actually cared about and wanted to do. I find myself a tiny bit paralyzed with that project. With the thinking about it, I realize I need to do a better job of thinking like that about things in my life. Am I doing these things because I feel like I should do them? And that's like the should that just comes from somewhere out floating in space, not an inspired should. Do you know the difference there? Do you know what I'm talking about? The things that we say, oh, I should do that. I should do that. Why? Were you inspired to do it? Or did you just add that to your list of things to do because somehow, somewhere you think that sounds like something that ought to be done? So anyway, this idea of allowing myself to, and I could insert my lean back, right? Allowing myself to lean back and look at it and say, why would I do that? Do I need that chair? I don't even know where we would put that chair. So that was kind of a big thing for me. Wait a second. Do I even have a place where that would go? Why would I recover a chair that I don't have a place for? Could I make a place for it? Yeah, I could. But do I need to do that? I don't. And even just that first step has been kind of an eye-opening thing. And I think to do that with an inanimate object is a good first step, right? Because I don't have lots of emotion tied to that. But I wonder how many other things in my life I could apply a little bit of logic to and think about. Is this necessary? Is it needful? Is it helpful? Is it good? Is it blessing my family? Or has it been an obstacle? Truly, this chair has been an obstacle for many years. It's been in the way. And how has it blessed or benefited my family? And would it? So I'm really considering I might actually just give that chair away. And that is this very freeing and terrifying at the same time thought. So I'm going through this period in my life where I think I'm ready to make some changes, and I've got to figure that out. I don't know. Are any of you else? That doesn't make any sense. Are any of you feeling any kinds of things like that? Do you have any things you're trying to change or do differently? Cadence.
Okay, so I have a bunch of stuff like that, except for my problem is it's a really good thing. I've got these chairs that are gorgeous. I love them. They're not super comfortable, but they work. But they're amazing. They're like wingback chairs, and they're this dark green, and I love them, but I have nowhere to put them. And so it's killing me to let them go. So yes, I have tons of stuff like that. Perfectly good things I have a hard time letting go of.
Yeah.
But then I was getting rid of some stuff, and then it started to bring in this energy into my life of like freeing. And I'm like, oh, what else can I let go of so I can feel this great? But I have not let go of the chairs yet. But yes, I have some chairs.
Okay. I totally relate to that. I had these chairs and they were so cool. They were these slipper chairs and armless and just they had a cool shape. I loved the legs. I loved so many things about them, but I didn't have a place for them. And I kept those for about 8 years before I finally realized they are not blessing your life. The idea of them is lovely in the home that I don't have, or the extra room that I don't currently have in my house and have no way to build or add on. So why am I holding on to this thing? And I think it was a conference talk that talked about one of the ways we can let go of things is thinking about the people who could use the item that is just sitting and not being used by me, right? So I let go of those.
Yes, I love that. Another thing that's come to my mind is like, I'm letting go of this so that the Lord can bring something else in to my life.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is yet, but and then he's going to bring that into someone else's life. And so it really doesn't matter. Like it's matter. It moves around. It doesn't matter. But yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I wish I could get that into my teeny tiny little head that he will bring things. He wants to bless me. He tells me that. Don't worry. If there's a need, I will provide it. And for the longest time, I was like, yeah, but your definition of need and mine are different, And so that terrifies me a little bit. So no, I'll think I'll hold on to these things instead of trusting that he knows best.
And that he brings wants into our lives too. He
Yes.
does. He'll tell me, okay, go to the thrift store on this day. And then I find this thing that I've been looking for. Anyway, he'll bring it into our lives. So we don't have to worry about letting go. I know I'm telling myself too, because I still struggle with this. Like,
No, I appreciate that you said that because that's exactly my experience. He brings wants. And I think it's a want. I didn't even need that thing. So, Mary, hold on to this idea because of what you shared last week. Hold on to this idea. There is something, he wants us to go through trials. He wants us to experience the desperately needing him. And you and I have both experienced that in the financial realm, and we know what that feels like, and we know how terrifying that can be and how helpless you feel. But when you let go and say, okay, all right, fine, I'm gonna leave this to you. I'm gonna let go of my trying to make it be what I want it to be and open yourself up, things just come your way and you start having eyes to see the ways that he's blessing you, with other things. I wish I would learn it so that I would let go of all the other stuff that is making me not be able to breathe. And like Cadence with those chairs, when I let go of them, it hurt at first. And I thought, these are chairs. They're just chairs. And they're chairs that I don't even have a place for. But it's that dream thing that I have about them, that made it hard for me to let go of them. But once they were gone and I got over that initial, I don't know, separation anxiety or something from these stupid chairs, I could breathe. I felt better. And anyway, and he has brought other things into my life. I look around my home and think, I didn't buy much of any of that. It just sort of over time came. And I don't know. I just wonder how many areas of our lives that is applicable, that concept of just let go and let him bring to us the things that we need. Let go of habits, let go of, I don't know, worries and concerns, and let him replace that with whatever he replaces that with, but with goodness.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up because I was up in the night, like sometime this past week. I woke up around, I think, 2 a.m. I just couldn't go back to sleep because I was, thinking about okay, where's the money coming from? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to listen to, I told you last week about this conference that Treston Neal has on her website.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, well, I'm going to listen to some of those because those help me feel better. Because the name of her conference was, let's see, totally forgot now, just went out of my head. It was um, learning of Christ or something, and how to bring him into your homeschool or something. I did not get it correctly, but so I was listening to those, and I probably listened to 4 of them in the middle of the night, and they're about an hour long. I did have them on 1.5 speed, but the last one I listened to, something clicked. I was like, oh, okay, because she shared her story, and it seemed similar to my story. And I was like, okay, so what did she do? And she actually wrote a book kind of about how she helped, how they got out of their situation they were in. So I got the book and started reading it to my husband last night. I'm like, this clicked for me. I think this can maybe help us get out of this funk we're in. And she talks about, in the interview that Tresta did with her, she talked about the law of the vacuum. And she told this story of, I don't remember who it was. Someone had gone to his grandmother's house or something, and the grandmother was saying, I don't like these curtains. I really don't like these curtains. And then he finally says, well, why don't you get rid of the curtains? You know, because you keep saying you're going to get rid of them and get something new. And she's like, well, I just can't, because I don't have anything new yet. And he's like, well, why don't you get rid of the curtains? And it's like, no, I couldn't do that. So what happened? So the story goes, she gets rid of the curtains, and the next time he goes back to visit, she has new curtains. She's like, but all the furniture was gone. So what happened is she created this vacuum by getting rid of the curtains she didn't like, so something new could come in, and she got these, new beautiful curtains. And so, so just from that story, I was like, okay, I want to start reading this book to help make this transition. Because we've been working on this transition. My husband's trying to switch his income source, and he's been working on it for a really long time. And I just I've just been holding on, okay, hoping it's going to work, and it just kind of sounded like that's where she was at with her and her husband. And because she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and not have to go out and work. And she anyway, I'm feeling more hopeful than I was last week. And my son's making something in the background. So anyway, so yeah, I just want to share that. And you guys, it seems like when you guys were talking about getting rid of stuff, I'm like, oh, the law of the vacuum kept coming into my mind of, you get rid of something to make space for something better.
I love that. I hadn't heard about that, and I really like that idea. Melanie likes it too. Oh, that's so good. Okay, and was that Tristan or did she just share about the law of the vacuum?
So Tresta didn't share. She was interviewing someone called Leslie Householder, which
Okay.
I've read another book that she has. And the book is actually, let's see, let me find it. Let me see if I can find it. I can put it in the chat because it's a free download. It's basically you give her email and give her your email, and then she sends you a link to this free downloadable book.
Okay,
So
I see it as
it's a
Principles of Prosperity.
Yes, I think that's the one that's the download one. Jackrabbit Factor is another book she wrote, Melanie. Yeah, That's the first book she wrote. And then this other one, at least on the digital copy, it says it was 2016. So that was later. And I'm like, okay, why didn't I pick this up in 2016? It would have been so much further ahead.
I know.
But you know what? I don't think I was ready. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
I probably would have tried, but it wouldn't have been as impactful as I think it can be this time around.
Yeah, exactly.
Going through it, because she actually talks about the laws that this other book is about. Let me find on my Kindle, because that's where I have it. I just had it open. The name of the other book is, I decided not to open for me, is called Hidden Treasures. Was this one? It's called Heaven's Astonishing Help with Your Money Matters.
Okay, I love it.
So anyway, it's like I said, I'm only about 17, 20 pages into the book, but I want to read it with my husband so maybe we can get on the same page and work together.
Right. No, I love it. And I need this in my life too right now, Mary. So I love it. I'm going to think about this, the law of the vacuum. Just make room for goodness to come into your life by getting rid of the things you don't need, the things that are maybe cluttering up your lives. Have you guys, I think we talked about on here the silent to-do list. That there's a YouTube video about that, and it's I can't remember the mom's name anyway. She does a lot of things on decluttering and stuff, but she talks about the silent to-do list, and it's all those things that we own that are telling us, oh, you haven't done this yet, you haven't fixed me, you haven't taken care of me, you haven't watered me, you haven't sewn me, you haven't, whatever it is, you haven't done it yet. And this idea of going through your home and looking to see if you have things like that, that maybe you'd be better off letting go, so that your life can be filled with the good things, the things that matter most. So I like that idea. And the slowing down, we've talked about that a bunch on here. Some periods of your life, you feel like that is not an option. Like there's no room for slow. All it is, running from here to there. But I've even talked with moms about that who have said, I thought it had to be that way. And then prayerfully examined things and realized there were some things that could be changed that they had just always accepted as the norm. This is just what you do. And when they re-examined it, they could see it differently. And I love this idea of, again, leaning back, taking your thing, whatever it is, whether it's activities or items or responsibilities, I don't any of those things, and just taking it away from right here, right in front of you, and taking it out here and turning it around and looking at it from all the angles and trying to see if there's a different thing you could do about it or with it or do it, depending on what it is. And if there's just a different way to think about it. And I think that can be helpful for all of us. I'm trying to do it. I don't know about you, but thank you. I love these ideas. Okay. Now what? Hi, Melissa.
Hi. Yeah, I like all these thoughts and concepts. We discuss them regularly in our home. In fact, last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I went into my daughter's room and it was just full. And she's a creator.
Mm-hmm.
And so I walked in and I said, do you feel like you can create in here? Because she was kind of frustrated that day. And she goes, no, it's just too much. And I said, a lot of people can't create unless they have a space to create. It doesn't seem like you have much space to create. And she goes, oh. And the rest of that day, she took things off her wall. She threw a bunch of stuff out and not completely redid her room, but walked out at the end of the day and went, now I have space. Now I have space to create. And so I think even little kids can understand this concept because it feels different. I think we talked on here before about how I had relatives that were hoarding. And I had asked, I don't remember the specific question, but the answer was curate your collections or curate your life. And I've thought of that ever since. But the house that I live in, the house that my husband and I have, is notably smaller than both of the homes we grew up in. And so once we got married and had kids and all these things, our parents would be like, oh, here, put this in your house. And I'm like, where would we put that? we literally don't have a space in our house where that could go. And they're like, well, get a bigger house. And I was like, we don't need a bigger house. It seems really dumb to get a bigger house for a thing that we don't need. And just realizing that in our culture or family cultures or whatnot, that has been a mindset. You need a bigger house because you need these things, as opposed to back in the day, you had a small house, you didn't have very many things, and your kids played outside because they were underfoot. And so I think that's been weird for our families too, to be like, well, we don't have room for that, we don't have space for that, and we don't need that. So nope, do what you want with it. But kind of on the flip side for our house, we designate space. This is the space we have for blankets or dishes or whatnot. And if we start overflowing that space, we have to get rid of stuff. And that's been a cycle we've constantly gone through, is we still end up bringing stuff in, but then we have to get rid of stuff. So we need to work on the not bringing stuff in probably. But I feel like the concept of space or limiting space or time is also helpful. I'm not an artist. I've never enjoyed art because I'm better. But when I was younger, I was a perfectionist and I didn't draw well. And so I just gave up because I couldn't do it perfectly and it looked stupid. And so I stopped doing art. But I don't want to set that pattern for my children. And so I got myself a little notebook and I got a little watercolor set. I figured if I was going to mess up, I might as well pick watercoloring because it's just going to be terrible. And I've been trying every day or two to just do it. But I got my little notebook was like a half-page notebook and it was too much. It was too overwhelming for me. And so I divided each page into quarters and I'm doing like this little amount of watercolor every day. But that is manageable for me. It's not overwhelming because I have this whole space I have to fill and it's like so much space and imperfection. And so that is enough for me to do. So my kids can see me creating and not being perfect and having fun being a hot mess a little bit.
Melissa, I love that. I just have to, so I don't miss commenting on this. I love that you're doing that for them, that you're doing this thing that is really stretching you and is hard for you and, you know, has this scary, insecure element, but you're doing it to show them that example. I love that.
Yeah. So, because it's like emotionally frustrating for me, but it's not like gonna ruin my life. And as little kids, especially my kids, we have one that kind of deals with perfection leaning and we have one that deals with frustration and so they can see me being like, well, that didn't work the way I thought it would. And so
that's so great for them to see that modeled and to watch how mom handles those feelings or those experiences. I love that. That's so great. And I love what you did with your daughter about her room too, to invite her to think about, maybe this isn't a space you can create in. Maybe you need to create a more open space. I'm thinking that about just in my head. I need to make space to be more creative, more thoughtful, more intentional. Anyway, so many thoughts. Continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or I needed less space because too much space was overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And last week I talked about our school schedule curriculum stuff and I was struggling. And the answer I'm trying right now, I don't know if it will last, but the answer I got was to set timers and checklists, which we've tried before to some degree, but they're older and whatnot. And so I created a checklist on my phone of all the things that, you know, math, language, arts, music, chores, just the basics they need to do every day or week. And then I asked them if they wanted to do them in roughly hour-long increments or half-hour-long increments, depending on what they were. And one of my children said, no, I want an hour. I want 50 minutes of work and 10 minutes of break. I don't want to be interrupted in the middle. And the other one was like, absolutely the shorter one, Mom.
Yeah.
I want 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of break. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I've always kind of just kept them on a rotating similar schedule for my management of helping them. And so I set up their schedule. So one of them has 2 30-minute schedules. One of them has one hour schedule. And I'm not saying, okay, you're going to do math first because you can use the computer and you can do piano next. And I just said, we only have one piano and we have one computer. Whoever gets to it first gets it. And if you leave, somebody else can grab it from you. And they have been so much happier. They have done so much more proactively. We still have our ups and downs. It's been 4 days or whatever, and we're still working on it, but they're having more playtime. They're having more creativity. And they're taking more responsibility. Like, oh, I normally would get up from doing this when I got distracted and go do this, but I don't want somebody to take the computer from me and I have to wait. So I'm gonna keep doing this. And it's been so funny every single day. They're like, can I check off my list?
And I love that. I love that you're following inspiration. And so for right now, that is working for your kids because it's what you were inspired to do for your family. And if
But
we could trust that,
the interesting thing for me was the one like, no, I want an hour, quit interrupting me and throwing me off. And the other one's like, absolutely not, an hour.
yes.
And that's not anything I'd ever considered before, but instead of like creating space, creating time increments or restrictions or expansions or whatnot, that has been beneficial for them for the last few days.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sometimes all we get is a week on this schedule and then we got to do something else next week. And like we talked about last week, that's a thing we could as mothers, we could have learned when they were babies. Oh, this changes all the time and we need to be flexible. I think if we embrace that concept, we'll be a lot happier as moms. And also, I love that you're respectful of each of your children and how they work best, and that you're allowing for that, which makes your schedule a little bit harder because you've got to keep track of the two different times, but you're respecting them and doing that. I think that's great.
And so, yeah, all this to basically say like, yes, space is a thing, but time is a thing. And sometimes we need to clear it, or sometimes we need to limit it. We need to say like, okay, I'm dealing with this thing and it's not leaving my mind. So I'm giving myself 20 minutes to think about it and then we're done. Like,
yeah, I don't know if any of you have tried the Pomodoro thing, which is that sort of idea, and it's 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off when you want to accomplish a thing, because you can focus, you can be solid on that, for 20 minutes. And especially when you know that there's an end. And so I've used that to get things done, just to set my little timer for 20 minutes and I will work on that thing. And then the timer goes off and I have to stop. Like I get to stop. But if I'm in the groove, and I want to keep going, I can, but it's not overwhelming to me when I start. So that's helpful. And we did a similar thing with art, Melissa. We took business cards that we didn't need anymore, and we called them, we had a little folder that was for business cards, and we had a stack of business cards and art supplies. And sometimes for an activity for family home evening, we would create mini masterpieces, and they were just tiny. So you didn't get overwhelmed by all that blank space and what are you going to do with it? And then if we liked it, we could put it into the little business card holder, and it was our family's collection of mini masterpieces, but having that limited space was a good thing. So yeah, that's a good concept. Good to think about. Thank you, Melissa. Other thoughts? Yeah.
I love the timer idea. I use the timer all the time to get things done. I'm starting to use it with my children and say, hey, look, just focus on it for this amount of time. And the last few weeks, I was going to get on Marco Polo and say, okay, how do you keep your house clean? How do you motivate your children to help clean it? Because in the first week of January, we did great. And then it just kind of fell apart for several months. But this week, Tuesday, we did our cleaning stuff, and it took a long time because we put it off for a long time. And the next day I said, okay, let's do our daily home blessing. And it took like 10 minutes. And my daughter's like, this is fun. I said, yes, it can be fun. If you do it every day, it doesn't take very long. So that's my goal every day, is to do that, go through those. I have all these little tasks on cards. And so we used to just pick one and then do it. And I'm like, no, I think it'd be better if we just could do it in the same order each time. Then we don't even have to think about it. We'll just get it down. And then it takes 10 minutes to clean the house instead of an hour or an hour and a half. So let's see, it's working for this week. We'll see how next week goes. But it's helped me to, I'm like, hey, once you're done with that, you can go outside and play. And she's like, really? I said, yeah. So it's been good so far this week.
Yeah, no, that's so good. So good. One, you acknowledging that, hey, you know what? I'm going to take credit for the week that was good. I'm not going to feel more pressure. I'm going to say, yeah, good job, Mom. It worked for a week. And then two, that you're showing her this difference between letting it pile up and then, wow, look what happens when we're on top of it. And they're getting to see that difference. So I love that. That's good.
And my son mopped the kitchen floor this week. I said, okay, it's your turn to mop. And I got the stuff out and he mopped it and it went well.
Well, I remember reading a thing, I think I've shared it here, that don't take all the fun jobs. And you don't know what the fun jobs are. And I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So I made a list of all the jobs and I asked my kids, if you got to choose, which ones would you choose? And they would choose things that I don't like to do, that I would never have chosen first. And I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. I like this. And so we got into the habit of every so often, and it would change because of the ages of my kids and stuff. It was either, every 3 months or every month or every 6 months, but we would bring the whiteboard back out and list all the jobs, and then, okay, sign up. Here's your color marker. Here's your color, sign up for the ones you want, and everybody would get their first pick, and then everybody would get their second pick, and then their third pick, and they would choose the jobs, and then we would teach them how to do it and then kind of oversee it. And it was fun. It was really fun. Okay, what is Melanie telling us? I found a note I had written from when my boys were 3 and 5, and they were fighting and crying over who got to clean the toilet, who had that privilege. That's super funny. Yes, we don't know what the fun jobs are. And so ask your kids, what are the fun jobs? What do you want to do? And let them do them while they're young. Young, little, tiny people can do some important jobs, and it makes them feel good. And it helps them feel part of the family economy. That's good. I think we've talked about, we would talk about whether our children were being producers or consumers, and they needed to be producers in the family. We all could, there were good things we could all consume, but we also needed to be producers. So anyway, it's so good. That's so good. Just the family dynamics, the family trying to work those things out. And I think once you realize that this is fluid, and it needs to change whenever it needs to change, and you can't necessarily be on a schedule, you can be open to saying, oh, this has not worked for a few days now. Maybe I need to look at it again. Maybe we need to reevaluate.
Can I share a sweet moment I had last night?
Please.
My cute 5-year-old has been a handful recently and doesn't want to go to bed. But last night he scraped his knee on the driveway, and he was so tired from the day that he just kind of melted into a quiet evening. So I cleaned off his wound and got that bandaged up, and then I washed his feet and his legs because they were kind of dirty, but he was too tired for a bath. So I just kind of washed him up, and I put his jammies on, brushed his teeth and everything. And when I was washing his hands, he said, Mommy, this feels really nice when you wash my hands with soap. Usually he's like, there's no way I will wash my hands after I go to the bathroom. I won't do it. So that's a battle. But tonight, or last night, it was just calm. It was refreshing. It was so nice for him. And then I said, okay, go pick 4 fireman books. He loves firemen. And so we read 4 fireman books, and he didn't want me to stop reading. He just loved to snuggle, and I would read him stories, and I put him in his bed, and I was rubbing his back, the Sally Clarkson thing, the rubbing the back and saying a prayer over your child, bedtime blessings. So I did that, and he just couldn't get enough of it. He loved it. And then we read stories later in the evening. He didn't want anyone else to get stories. He only wanted him to get stories with me, but we read stories, and then he fell asleep, and it was so nice. I wish every night was like that, but I'm just enjoying it for now because he liked me washing his hands, and it was just so sweet. He's very independent. He just wants to do everything himself. He wants to use all the power tools, and I have to tell him no most of the day, because he's doing things that he just can't. He cannot use Dad's power tools. So I try to say yes to him whenever I can, but it's just a sweet moment. I just wanted to share that.
I'm so happy you had that moment with them, and that'd be a nice thing to record somewhere so that you remember. Because we don't remember. We think we're going to, and we don't. So that's really sweet. Two moms were talking to me yesterday about how they think that they probably love their very difficult child so much more because of all that they've been through together. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't mean more than the other children, but they love that child even more because they've really had to wrestle through that relationship. So, yeah, those tender moments can be huge, huge victories, huge, just sweet little somethings. I love that you got that, Cadence. Well, moms, it's been nice. It's been nice just to be together. Oh, yeah. No, I don't even want to think about that. We'll just think about June, and we'll think about July, and we'll enjoy August so much. And September was just over there. We just won't think about that. But Cadence, again, let me tell you, you are such a wonderful example to all of us, to each one of us, in you doing a very hard thing, but doing it because it's what the Lord is asking you to do, and trusting that. And this is one of those big situations. I said some words like this last time too. Trusting that even though you cannot see it, like you don't understand how this makes sense, it doesn't make sense to you, you're still trusting that He knows what's best. So thank you for being that example for the rest of us. Because we each have areas of our lives like that. I have some right now that I'm just saying, Lori, just learn, let go, trust Him, do the hard thing. It's going to be right. I don't know. I mean, and it's going to be okay, but it probably won't feel okay. It probably will still feel really hard and kind of miserable. But I think overall we'll get to the point where we feel good because we are trusting. We are letting Him have it. We are giving it to the Lord and saying, okay, all right, let's do this. So anyway, thank you all for where you are, for what you bring, for encouraging each other and being here for each other. I love it. I love it. So have a good week. And know that you're loved, know that you're appreciated, at least by your fellow moms, if not by anybody in your family this week. At least you know you have us, we have each other. So thanks for being here. Bye, everybody.